Hi, welcome to the angle the camera will be at while I'm recording and charging at the same time. I know in my channel update video or whatever, I said this was not the highest priority, but then I realized this is something I can do really quick. And I already have so much other shit that I have planned to film that I should just get this out of the way. So this is going to be the Scream Installments ranked. You'll notice this says Scream Installments and not movies, and that's because I am including the 3 seasons of the TV show and the Halloween special at the end of Season 2. I'm counting as separate from Season 2. The quality difference is vast, and I don't want it to drag that season down. That makes 9 placements on this list, and with an upcoming Scream 6 coming out, God knows what that'll be called. I hope it's called Screams, because if it's called Scream 2, I'm going to be annoyed. But let's get into this list. At number 9, we have Scream's Halloween special. Now, rewatching it, it's not as bad as I remember, but it's still the worst installment of Scream. I mean, the first 2 seasons, they have some relatively high stakes. Characters you care about die, but in this Halloween special, no one important dies except Kieran from the season 2, and he was the killer in the last season, and they did a neat subversion where they let the killer live at the end, which is fun, because season 1 and 2 have a neat subversion at the end, because in season 1, they reveal there's a killer that isn't revealed, and then in this second season, he's not killed, and he's arrested, but the opening of this kind of undoes that and kills him. And then it just goes off and does I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, but worse. And to do the only good I Know What You Did Last Summer and do it worse is just a bad move. Like, I don't know. But that's the bottom of the list. At number 8, we have Season 3 of Scream, and Season 3, the last 2 episodes really biff it. The last 2 episodes were as good as the first 4 episodes, or like episodes 2 through 4, then I could see this maybe. No, it's not as good as the other seasons. I think this one has the least to do with like patterning itself with the type of installment that it is. Like in the first movie, obviously it's a slasher, and then in a sequel, it's a sequel, and then there's the concluding chapter of a trilogy, or the sequel that kills the franchise, and then there's the remake and the reboot, and then there's the TV show. And they are commenting on horror TV shows in that show, albeit minutely. And the Halloween special has its own, like, it's supposed to be like this weird crossover thing, but that's kind of very vaguely touched on. And the killer in that's definitely not trying to be slashery. But this season seems to, like, they reference that it's like a horror movie, but it's a TV show. And so they're kind of just elongating I don't know, they just don't do a very good job at, like, portraying the meta-ness as the other installments do. Plus, there's a lot of just negative stereotypes in the movie, and some pretty blatant propaganda. Like Kim, she's an activist, right? And she's written to be a little over the top, like a little unnatural. And then all the cops, like, if you're gonna have a character be an activist in this type of setting, then you need to have the cops actually be bad enough to warrant that in your script. Otherwise, it's propaganda, and you're just painting her to be annoying. Like, there's a scene with rednecks, racists, pieces of shit, and she antagonizes them first and frequently. And then, of course, they run her off the road, and they suck, and they don't even die. Why would you introduce racist pieces of shit and not kill them? I don't know. I found that annoying. Like, the killer reveal, while it's a mixed bag for me. Like, I really like Beth, but the reveal doesn't really work because they don't try to have any remnants of like a psychology behind her or even a realistically vague one. They're just like, I was born bad. And that's why I love horror movies and shit. And it's like, no one's just born evil. But, I don't know. I digress. I do love the other killer. I like a lot of the characters in this. I love that Tony Todd's in this. But, like I said, there's propaganda. And also, Liv being so unlikable and insane and then not dying at the end when she has killer eyes and she's fucking burning herself. Like, on the third viewing, I realized, though, she's just trying to feel like she's like dealing with Manny and trying to feel what he felt. But still, like, just her dead face when she's doing that, and like the fucking her whole character was just whack job, and the fact that she's not the killer kind of ruins it because it just takes away from the realism. Like, there's something wrong with her, and they never really go into it. At number 7, we have our first of the actual movies, which is Scream 3. All of you probably figured that this would be the last of the movies. Scream 3 is, I'd say it's a lot better than the bottom two spaces. But, I don't know, they use Sydney very little, and what they do with her definitely makes her character better, which is amazing that this movie could do that. But they ruin Dewey and Gale. I've said ad nauseum that I don't think Gale and Dewey should have lived as long as they did. And Gale specifically. And in the first movie, I like that they live, because I like Dewey, and I like that Gale, being the character that you're waiting to die the whole time, ends up saving our lives, and that's a fun subversion of the expectations. In the second movie, I'm okay with Gale living because she had the actual raw emotional reaction to Randy and Dewey's deaths, so she grew as a human, and then by the end, she was a more decent human being. And then you get into Scream 3 and you find out that she did the same thing with the events of the second movie as she did with the events of the first movie. She's not with Dewey anymore, and they heighten her annoyance level up to 1,000. And they just kind of make Gale and Dewey satires of themselves. And they set up the movie to be like, anyone could die. And obviously, you're not going to kill Sydney, but you can't introduce that plot element and then not deliver. Especially when Roman has Gale and Dewey tied up for so fucking long before Sydney gets there, and he only needs them alive for the phone call to get her to go there. I don't know, it's really fucking frustrating. And like I said, they really dumb down Dewey and they really amp up Gale's bitchiness. I do find Jennifer Jolie hilarious, of course. I love Parker Posey. Grew up with the Blade movies. Blade 2 is actually the first horror movie I saw, so. But, and I love Patrick Warburton in this. So I do enjoy all these installments to some extent, but yeah, 3 just misses the ball sometimes. One thing I love about the movie is that while it's not Scream 3D, it's like going behind the camera literally, as opposed to having something pop out to the camera. I don't know, it kind of seems like they're taking the satire to the 3D realm. Like, so that I always thought was a little funny. And, yeah. I don't know. Ghostface in this movie is not the best. He's not the worst either. I don't know, I think they really dropped the ball. And also, I really hate when they do stuff in a sequel that worsens the original. And having Roman be the one that told Billy to have a sidekick and to kill Maureen, it does lessen it a little bit. Giving Roman credit for coming up with Ghostface or the phone calls or having it set up in the events of a slasher movie, I'm not giving him any credit for any of that. I think that he just got them to kill Maureen and then left. And then had like a reaction to what they did as like, ooh, I started this, I need to end it kind of a deal. But regardless, I do find that as a fun way to conclude the trilogy as far as like I don't know. I love these movies, but this is where Scream 3 lands. Next we have season 1 of the show, and coming off of 4, like we were all kind of wanting there to be a fifth one, and to me this show definitely like hyped me up. I saw this every time it came out, and like except for like the last couple weeks that I kind of watched all at once, which I think helped. But nah, I love the show. Like the first 2 seasons of the show are great. Um, like the characters aren't the best at first, but they definitely find their fitting by the end. I really like Jake and Noah and Brooke. Although most of my love for Brooke comes from season 2 Brooke. And I like Audrey in season 1, but I hate her in season 2. And yeah, I don't know. I think that they really up the kills to make up for just being uh less of what else made Scream work, cuz Scream was all about satiring the slasher subgenre, and like while having a series of events that make like realistic sense to happen that way because they're being performed by people that want it to happen as a slasher, it kind of loses a little bit of that and makes up for it in, first of all, just more inventive and gruesome kills, but also you really get to flesh out the characters and have them grieving and reacting to all the deaths. I'll say they're not the best in this season at portraying grief, but they do get better as the show goes on. As far as the new mask, I don't mind it at all. I think it looks closer to the painting the Scream than the actual Ghostface mask. And I think it is a better mask, even though I don't like to me it's a better mask, but I do enjoy the performance behind the other mask more. But I'm just like separating everything that happens in the movies and thinking about and the show and just thinking about the masks by themselves. So I never hated that. And it's better than Scream 3, but it's not as good as any of the other movies or season 2. So, yeah. 9 episodes, I believe, 10 maybe. Let's see, there's 30. 6 plus 12 is 18. So, oh, and then there's the 2 from the Halloween special. So yeah, there's 10 episodes of season 1. So, yeah, I would definitely check those out if you haven't. I mean, if you haven't, you're probably not watching this, but yeah. 5, we have Scream 4. Now, Scream 4, going into this movie, I was like, Gale or Dewey better die. And then they didn't. And that's really one of the main things that holds this movie back. But, I don't know, I love the cast. I don't really care for the filter on it, but it's not as bad to me as it is to most people. It's pretty much top tier Scream content. Uh, yeah, season 2 really worked out the kinks from the first season, but yeah, it's still. But Scream 4, I love it because like I grew up in the remake craze. I was born in 2000. By the age of 3, I was watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, and like I knew how to work a VCR and shit, so I was like popping that shit in and just like, and with the fucking thing coming through her head and shit. And then of course I grew up with the Freddy Krueger movies, and I watched all of them except one of them because I couldn't find that one. And then I saw the remake in theaters, and then I watched the other one I couldn't find. I have a whack order. I watched those in video if you really care about that. But the point is that I always loved remakes. So when I found out that Scream 4 was doing remakes, I was over the moon. I love it that they're going back to the high school setting in Woodsboro, because in each movie, the characters age with Sydney. But in this movie, it's Sydney watching this all happen to a new generation again, and that has elements that heighten her character, especially that she has to deal with this as her little cousin. And I don't know, I really love this movie. They fixed Dewey which he wasn't broke until Scream 3, but so they definitely make up for lost time with that. They make him more serious than he's ever been before, less of a parody of himself. But still, he's still Dewey, and he's still Dewey in the fifth one too, which I love. And then Gale, like I said, I think Gale should have died in Scream 3, maybe even 2, just because they didn't go anywhere with her being her redemption arc. And then Scream 4, they literally stab her, and then she's not in the rest of the movie until the end. They could have killed her there. And then it would have had the emotions of the last act of Scream 4 would have been way more heightened. And I think that's just a huge missed opportunity. While on the other hand, I think that it completely makes sense to not kill them in the remake. Just even if it's not a remake, it's just the idea that you don't fuck with the original. Sydney saying that line is the climax of the movie. It's the point of the movie. To have her or Charlie actually kill Gale or Dewey, I can see why that would be the wrong movie to do it in. I was just still salty they didn't in the third movie, and this was the last one I saw. And when I saw this one, the TV show hadn't even come out, so like I thought this was gonna be it, and I was like, God damn it. Of the new characters, I think it's really they just make sense because while they are like the characters in the original, it makes sense because they watch these movies every fucking year. And when you grow up watching movies, sometimes you take in traits from your favorite characters. And none of them are carbon copies of another character either. They all have blends of aspects of different characters in them because they had watched the same movies. Like Robbie feels like he's a Stu Randy mix. Charlie feels like he's a Stu Randy mix, albeit more Stu. And Kirby is definitely a Randy Tatum mix. I almost said Rantum, which they were never together. Healthier relationship than with Stu though. But yeah, enjoy that aspect of it all. I did enjoy the new characters. I thought the Ghostface here was probably his most brutal and definitely the most gory, but not the most violent or vicious. Because being the most gory and being the most brutal are not the same thing, and some people got annoyed at people saying Scream 5 was the most brutal. And they're like, Scream 4 is more gory, and it's like, there is a difference. That color filter, though, is that, like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, fucking My Bloody Valentine, they were all filmed digitally and have, like, a slight filter on them. I mean, I don't know if My Bloody Valentine actually had a filter, but they're all shot cleaner. A satire of remakes having such a loud pop on the filter, it works. It helps the satire. So I wouldn't change that. Have season 2 of the TV series. Removing the Halloween special only saved it like a placement. But yeah, no, season 2 is much better than season 1. There's more kills. The killer is funner. Even, he is in the first season too. He's just not revealed in that season. The kills have more weight to them in this season. Because, like, the characters more by this point, and the acting just goes, like, it's way the fuck better than the acting in the first season. I think they realized the actors' strong suits and wrote for that. I think that the intensity of this season's really good. The whole, like, way it unveils is fun. The chaos of that final episode. And like I said earlier, they have that neat little thing, like, where at the end, the killer's revealed, but instead of killing him, like I would, they let him get arrested and go to prison. And I always thought it was strange that, like, once the cops show up and they got Kieran tied up and at gunpoint, the cops totally buy that it's Kieran, even though they spent the whole episode trying to find Audrey and Emma thinking they're the killers. And I think that Kieran doesn't try to, like, talk them into thinking that those two are still the killers at that point, which they also have several eyewitnesses saying that Brooke was attacked by someone other than Emma and Audrey. So, and I don't know, I really like the characters in this TV series. I do think the season totally ruins Audrey because she tries to kill Noah just to save herself from having to explain something that's like you should have just explained right when it happened. I mean, I understand why she didn't explain it right when it happened because like that would be intense. But it would have been better than what happened. Of this season, it's like a slasher TV series done right. My only complaint is that, well, it's not even a complaint with this season, it's a complaint with the Halloween special after it, and that is that none of the important characters died towards the third act. Like, all the characters that die in the last episode are from the second season. And I don't know, I think one of the fun parts of the final act is that like some of the more important characters die once you realize that they're not the killer, or after you realize they are. And we only have one really important death in this episode. But I don't know, that's a small complaint. I know that they were thinking they were going to get another season, so they want to keep their top four characters alive. And the one on paper that you would kill next is the one that is the favorites, which would be Brooke. I don't know, I think they should kill Audrey if they bring him back. Leave Brooke alone. Top 3. And at number 3, we have the newest movie, Scream 5. 5 Cream. Scream 2022. Whatever you want to call it. I prefer 5 Cream. Yeah, no. This is a great movie. They finally killed Dewey. Which... fucking finally! But, you know... and they give him a really honorable and great kill. Like, if you watch my Scream kills ranked, you'll know that my top 2 kills are from this movie. And yeah, no, I love the ghost faces in this movie. I love pretty much everything about this movie. I'm only mixed about Billy, because while I accept that that's not him, that's her hallucinations, it's also just... I don't know. I hate it. I hate that kind of fan service where they're like, here's a dead character doing stuff. Because it just... At least they didn't resurrect him. And God, I hope they don't resurrect Stu. Everyone wants them to resurrect Stu. I'm like, no. It's been too many years for that to make logical sense that no one would think about him at all in the whole time between Scream 2 and now. I'm pretty sure I would have mentioned that Stu was alive in 3 when someone's leaving "I killed her" written everywhere. And if he was alive at this point, they would have already done a Hannibal Lecter scene with him where they went to see like, hey... And so they can't do that, in my opinion, without it being just stupid. I hate it when they do it in Rise of Skywalker. I would hate it if they did it in Scream 6. This is way more forgivable because he's still dead. It's just her... It's a voice in her head. So I'm giving that a pass, but everything else about this movie I love. Like, Randy's niece and nephew are... The cast is just great. Top tier. Like... God, I've seen this movie 4 times since it came out. This is, like... Scream 5 is phenomenal. But 9, so that's pretty fucking good. Series bar. Which, in some people's opinion, might not be as big of a bar as it is for me, but, you know. Alright, we're in our top 2. And if you'd asked me before my most recent rewatch of all of these what my number 1 would be, it would be different. So I'm glad that this video isn't one I posted and then had to redo like the Killers ranked one that I'm going to film after this. But my number 2 is actually the original Scream. Now this movie is almost perfect. Like, Scream is great. don't have to tell you why. I mean, obviously, the whole psychology of the killers making the events the most realistic events of a slasher, because most normal serial killers don't do it the way Jason does, but they're trying to do it the way Jason does, so it makes sense. And to have it work as the perfect satire because the characters interact as horror fans would to the situation. So the fact that they can have it be both completely real feeling and a perfect satire is it blends together very well. This satire on uh, the genre, I would go with 1991's There's Nothing Out There. If you haven't seen that, definitely watch it. That movie's great, and it totally reminded me of Scream. But it's great, but it just isn't as good as my number one, which is Scream 2. Now, Scream, like I said already like 3 times, great, but like it has less kills, and the characters, like, not like the characters that died in the original, but the main characters, Sydney, Dewey, Gale. I can't decide if Randy is, but the main three are better in the second one than they are in the first one. And I think Randy's probably equally as great in both. But the characters' development push them higher. Like, Sydney is a badass in this movie, whereas in the first movie, I would put that on like fight or flight mode, and like chaos of it all, and them being kind of bumbling idiots. In Scream 2, it is just her being a badass. And I love the idea of Mrs. Loomis. I love Mrs. Loomis, but like she doesn't kill that many people, and also I blame the whole MO being repeated on Mickey as opposed to Mrs. Loomis, who I think just wanted to kill these 4 people, the people that survived that night and had a hand in Billy's death. I don't know. I always thought that Scream 2 could be better than Scream 1 if they cut out that scene of them dancing, and there wasn't scenes where it was clear that Hallie and Derek were still acting as if they were the killers because they were changed that halfway through. I thought little things like that would hold it behind the first movie, but I still think that now I think that it is better than the first movie despite those things. In the first movie where there's no kills, and I do love the characters' interactions in that time, but it's not really a problem with the second movie. The second movie's just got a better budget. It's filmed slightly better. There's a lot of passion behind it because now they knew what they were working with. I love Timothy Olyphant, Jerry O'Connell, Sarah Michelle Gellar. That fun Randy Dewey scene where Luke Wilson is just fucking Billy. I don't know. 1 and 2 have gone back and forth lately, and I think that where it stands right now, Scream 2 is my favorite. It does what it's trying to do in being the bigger, better, badder sequel. Perfectly in that, like, because if you're gonna have a sequel to a horror franchise, or not even a franchise, if you're gonna have a sequel to a horror movie, and the last movie, the killers died, having it be someone getting revenge on them makes sense. And Mickey is the perfect killer to make sense of why it's following the formula of a sequel that like want to be famous and have their numbers shown, want more numbers than the serial killers they're fans of. It's like in Frighteners, where he keeps talking about whenever he beats somebody. Be a lot better if they didn't do that boombox joke there, because it's by far the most emotional kill of the first 3 movies. 4 movies actually, but it's it's cut down by that little joke there to cut the tension. I mean, we're already getting his kill off screen. I at least want to have the right emotions and not have a joke happen at the same time. But that's one of like the 3 little nitpicks I have of Scream 2. I guess if I was gonna give it another nitpick, I'd say Oliphant's not in enough of it, but at the same time, he's in that whole chunk he's gone in. He's just in costume, like stalking the girls and the cops and shit. So yeah, well, I don't know if Oliphant's behind the mask in those shots, but the point is the character's still there. So I don't know. Of Scream was made into a movie based on a book by Gale Weathers. That's great. And also, I'll say that if Dewey died in that scene, then Dewey's death in the 5th movie, even though that kill is in my top 2 kills of the franchise, just because the music, the way they're fucking with the sound in both rooms, Gale being there and having that raw reaction. But the 5th movie did make his death the second best of the franchise, so, you know. Maybe if Mrs. Loomis had actually killed Dewey, then Scream 2 would have been my favorite a lot sooner. Not because I don't like Dewey, but because it was such a good death for him, and she seems like a failure because she only killed one of the 4 people she was trying to kill, and I don't know, it kind of lessens her as a ghost face in my opinion, and so that's a mixed bag. I actually don't know how it would affect the ranking if they kept that in, if at all. But there's my Scream ranking. Like, subscribe, and all that bullshit.